Hey, what's going on, everybody? Justin here at Trumpful Reads, and in this video, if you can tell by the map I got here, if you see my other video with this map, I'm going to be doing the One Readathon to Rule 'em All Part 2 wrap-up, or round to it, not really Part 2. But yeah, I know this finished, I think, December 1st, and it's already getting into January, but like I said, I was kind of missing the action during December, so we are now going to be doing the wrap-up now. And what I'll be doing is for my November wrap up, this will cover all the fantasy reads for that month, and then I'll just do, when I do my November wrap up, it'll just be the nonfiction portion, if that makes sense. But anyways, this was a really cool readathon created by Ashley at Don't Have a Degree in Reading, and this is the second iteration of it. It was really fun in the middle of the year, so I definitely wanted to participate in the second round as well. It helps get in a lot of fantasy reads as well. For me, kind of needs like a little bit of a push. Even though I enjoy reading fantasy, it's not really my go-to genre. So, you know, it always helps having like some sort of challenge to push myself to read some more fantasy. And there's a whole bunch of co-hosts. I wrote them down so I didn't forget. We got James Chatham, Shelby at Read 'em Find Out, Cass at What Cass Read, Jocelyn at Yogi with a Book, Chris at Chris's Bookish Cauldron, Zoe at You're a Book Nerd, Zoe, and Brandy at Brandy's Books. I'll leave all their links down below. Go check their channels out as well. Be really cool. And this one was really neat in that this readathon there was 4 different paths. Basically, we had to destroy the One Ring, and there's 4 different paths you could take. And the last one being kind of you pick your own place. Like I think there was about a dozen locations in Middle Earth you could pass through, and each one has different challenges, readathon challenges, basically to advance to the next location. I picked the third path, which was Nomadic Traveler, I believe, and the path we take is we go from Bree to Moria to Rohan, then to, I don't know if it was Minas Tirith or, yeah, Minas Tirith, and then destroy the ring in Mordor. And I'll tell you each challenge as we go along. But obviously, the first place we start at excuse me, was Bree, and the challenge for Bree was to read a fantasy book with a non-European European setting. So I went with a book that I started like in January, February, a really big book that I wanted to finish before the end of the year, and it was The Complete Chronicles of Conan by Robert E. Howard. This was my first fantasy book ever. It was gifted to me by my friend Wyatt, and I started it, and this is literally all of basically the Robert E. Howard original Conan stuff. But as you can see, it's pretty massive considering it's got like all like 30 like short stories in it. Really intense, and it definitely qualifies for the non-European setting because I mean you have like winter tundras, you have deserts, you have like jungle islands, then you have some like European settings. It's just all over the place. Like I said, just tons of different locales in the Hyperborea. So, or I don't know, is that really what the whole, I guess, the Hyborian age, yeah. But anyways, lots of different settings. Really enjoyed it. Some are definitely better than others with the short stories. Not gonna lie about that. Like some of the earlier ones, like the Phoenix on the Sword, it's pretty gnarly how not good it is. But there's tons of gems in here. For me in particular, one of my favorite ones was but anyways, there's lots of hidden gems in here. Probably my favorite one of all is Beyond the Black River. Sort of like kind of colonial, post-colonial themes going on. Tower of the Elephant's really good. Rogues in the House is really good. But like I said, lots of really good gems in there, even though not all of them. Some of the earlier stuff definitely is not up to par. And then kind of the middle period ones all follow the same sort of archetype. But overall, I still really enjoyed the whole Conan universe and the character of Conan. Just really fun, really just, you know, really quick, really fun sword and sorcery. And I do enjoy sword and sorcery quite a bit. Even though it is kind of like in that pulpy age of fantasy and all that, just I highly enjoy it. And I recommend this edition as well if you're like a Conan fan. Just a really cool book, and that cover is pretty sick. Alright, so from Bree we go to the Mines of Moria, and I believe the challenge for Moria was a grimdark book. And what's better grimdark than the Chronicles of the Black Company? I finished the third book, which was The White Rose. the third book in the Black Company. And each book is like different so far out of the first three. Kind of a different sort of setup, but I really enjoyed. This one was super grimdark. The setting was like awesome. It was kind of like the rebels are like out in like a kind of a desert area, the Coalition of the White Rose. Yeah, but this desert has like talking trees and like, or no, talking menhirs that can like move around, just like really weird sentient desert animal creature things and stuff. And obviously you have the White Rose, and you also have the Lady and a few of the Taken and stuff still battling it out. Just really intense. And then you also have kind of like a subplot that goes back in time a little bit, with a bit like a really cool archaeological undertones. I thought that was like really awesome, just the way they present like some new characters and stuff. Just really enjoy it. It is super bleak and grimdark. This is like the original grimdark from like the 80s and stuff. Just very, like I said, bleak and gray and pessimistic, basically. And the narration from the point of view of Croker is just, I don't know, he's just got like that dry, snarky humor, which I just think works really well with the setting. Highly recommend The Chronicles of the Black Company, and all three books so far have been spectacular reads for me. Alright, so from Mines of Moria, we go to Rohan, and the challenge for Rohan was to read a book with a female main character. I was sent Wildcat, like I think in the summertime, but I didn't get around to actually finishing it till this readathon, so I apologize for that. And as you can see, Rhiannon is the main character of this one. This was actually a really unique fantasy. I haven't read anything quite like it. It is almost like Celtic Roman historical fiction, almost, as how accurate sort of the Roman feels are, if that makes sense. Basically, you have Rhiannon is part of essentially a Celtic tribe, and there's the Gaian Empire, which is essentially the Roman Empire, and you have sort of the politics and what's going on there. And the author even told me that he was heavily inspired, obviously, by the Welsh resistance to Roman occupation, things like that. And that definitely shows. It was, like I said, it was really interesting, almost like a historical fantasy, if that makes sense, because it was so realistic with some of the historical details. And sort of the settings with, like, you know, the place name, or not place names, but like the personal names, things like that, and the cultural norms, stuff like that. Really interesting. And there is some fantasy elements with magic and like kind of alchemical stuff going on. It was really interesting. It's like kind of a new take on like berserkers and everything. It was really cool. I highly enjoyed it. I definitely will be getting the next book, which is Leaping Wolf. Excited to see where this book goes on from here. And yeah, so like I said, this definitely fit the bill for a female main character who's definitely a badass, doesn't have a problem, basically, you know, being in the front lines of armies and stuff like that. But it was different in that it was realistic in that you have like sort of like Roman occupation, how life has to change for like different barbarian tribes having to basically come to terms with the new order, as well as their own way of resisting that order and stuff. But like I said, I highly enjoyed it, and this definitely fit the bill for Rohan. Alright, next up was Minas Tirith, which was just to read was it reread or just read a fantasy book? I think it was just a fantasy book. But since it was like a Lord of the Rings inspired readathon, I went with a reread of, or a re-listen. I don't know. I listened to The Hobbit, and I have to say the narration is phenomenal on the audiobook version of The Hobbit. Just really tremendous. And I have to say The Hobbit definitely holds up well over time. I remember reading it way back in like elementary or middle school, something like that, and really enjoying it. But even as an adult now, like 10, 12 years later or whatever, still really enjoyable. Just a really great piece of literature. Just pretty much highly recommended to anyone who likes to read anything. Like I said, just fabulous narration, awesome book. Not going to go on too much because you guys probably know The Hobbit pretty well as well. So anyways, that was the fourth book for the challenge of Minas Tirith. And then lastly, on to Mordor to destroy the One Ring was to finish a series or a standalone book. And for that one, since it was a book I already had, and it's another Tolkien book for the One Readathon to rule them all readathon, you know, I went with The Children of Hurin by Tolkien. This was an epic book. This is like one of the first kind of extra Tolkien lore book I guess I've read. Really awesome. It's set in the First Age, but it's like Middle Earth plus Greek tragedy plus grimdark, all mixed into one, which sounds really bizarre, but it really is. Basically, it tells the tale mostly of Turin, who is the son of Hurin, and basically his entire sad and tragic life, from basically voluntary exile, fall from grace, then rising back up again, killing his friend on accident, falling in love with his sister without knowing it at the time, you know what I mean? All kinds of just crazy, tragic stuff going on, and it's just a really, really sad tale. But I think it was done really well. Really enjoyed it. Plus, it's set in the First Age, with Melkor and stuff as sort of the main antagonist and everything. So it's really interesting. Highly recommend it. I really loved it. Plus, there are some illustrations and plates in this one. I don't know if it's in probably in all the editions, but anyways, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic. Just like look at some of that artwork. Really cool, highly enjoyable, and I definitely highly recommend The Children of Hurin. Plus, I thought it was a really cool way to end the Readathon in Mordor by finishing this standalone novel. Like I said, can't say enough about it. Overall, I had really, really good picks that I really enjoyed. Conan was excellent. Children of Hurin is excellent. Wildcat was really good. White Rose was tremendous, and The Hobbit is phenomenal. So all 4 or 5-star reads. Just a really good time spending these 2 weeks reading those fantasy books. Tell me what you guys thought of any of the books or any of the authors if you've read them. And if you participated in this readathon like a month ago, tell me what your favorite fantasy book that you read during this readathon was. I'd be glad to hear it and pick up on some more fantasy recommendations as I go along. And always remember, whatever your next fantasy book is, read victoriously.